is about installing CRM on an on-premise server. There are two types of deployments, as I have talked about yesterday. There is the online deployment, which is on Microsoft's data centers, and there is the on-premise, which is on a dedicated server on-premise in your own company or at the client company. So today we'll talk about how to install it. There are a few things like access, server roles, license, requirements, for example, import, upgrades. We'll talk about different things today, a lot of things. Okay. First thing is access. To access CRM, as you know, you can access it through a web browser. Those are the web browsers that are supported, but Chrome has some issues that I have noticed, so I don't recommend using it for development. You can use it for just as a client, but don't use it as for development. There is also Outlook. Outlook can be used to synchronize emails, tasks, appointments, and actually you can create records. You can do a lot of things from Outlook. But of course, ideally you should use a web browser, but Outlook has some of the features of the web browser as well. But of course, much more limited. And there is also the portals. If you create a portal that connects to CRM in the back end, it can use the data that is stored in the CRM to display to the user, and he can create records and so on. It depends on the business. So there are a few ready-made portals that Microsoft has created, like ADX Studios, for example. It's a portal where you define the interface and just specify the data that you want from CRM. You don't have to build it from scratch. This was acquired lately by Microsoft from a different company called ADX, the same name as the portal. It's pretty expensive actually. I think $11,000 to buy it, something like that, and there is a subscription as well, something like that. So, but it's very well made, and it saves a lot of time in development. But most people do it from scratch. They build the portal and then use the SDK to connect to CRM. Okay, there are a few apps that can be used to access CRM. There are two types. Something called CRM for Phone Express, and that's actually deprecated. You don't use it anymore because it was for the old versions. And then you have it's not recommended to be used. And then you have CRM for phones. It's used from CRM 2015 update 1 and above. It supports all platforms. And then you have another one for tablets. It's called CRM for tablets. It supports from 2013 and plus. You can get all this information on the internet when you are ready to deploy CRM, or if a customer asks you for a compatibility list, for example. Okay, when you are deploying CRM, there are a few server roles. It's like components, if you will. For example, there is the UI, the front end. There is the back end where you store the data, where it communicates. With the database, and there is the database. There are a few server roles that are related to CRM. You can divide the installation on more than one server. It's up to you, or install it all on one server. I'll tell you what Microsoft recommends, and then there is, of course, security is applied whenever you are trying to do anything. So if you are logged in, if you are using the credentials of the administrator, you have access to everything. A user, you have access to whatever you specify to this user. If you remember yesterday, we used the security roles. Those are applied on the front end and the back end. It's at the level of the database, actually. Just so you know, in the database itself, for each table, there is another table. Let's say a table called account. It stores the accounts. there is another table that is called filtered accounts. This table is actually related to the security roles and the users. It filters the account to whatever the user has access to, has the right to do. So it's at a database level. Of course, there are other server roles like the ones that execute workflows. You have worked with workflows before. There is a whole role for workflows and plugins, and it syncs with Outlook. It provides a service that Outlook can communicate with, so that it syncs emails and creates records and so on, and create records and so on. Okay, what are the roles? There are three main roles, if I remember correctly. There are three main groups: the front end group, the back end, and the deployment. The front end has a few roles. There is a web application server role, which provides the UI, as you can see. There is the organization web service, which actually provides programmatic access. If anyone of you knows SOAP and REST, it's like SOAP. REST is an architecture, and SOAP is a protocol that allows you to access resources on the internet, okay, on a network. So, for example, I can write. Let's take a quick example. I just want you to get an idea of how it works. That's the organization web service. It's added automatically with the web application. So you can divide it, but it's normally added with the web application because it doesn't. It's a front end still. Discovery web service. It's just it's the same thing I just showed you, but it's called organization service. It provides you a list of the organizations like this, the Academy, for example. If you have noticed. This organization is called Academy, so it provides you a list of those organizations that you belong to, that you are a user in, that you have been added to. And then there's the help server, which just provides a help interface. It's as simple as that. Then there is the backend group. This is a very important group, of course. A lot of processing, a lot of business goes on in the backend group. The asynchronous group. Okay, to understand the asynchronous group, I have to explain how workflows work. First of all, for example, if you create an account, I might need to add, your business might require that you generate a serial number, for example, or an account number in a certain format. So CRM out of the box supports this for certain entities and not others. So for the entity that doesn't support this, you have to create your own code that generates this format, this number. You write this code in a plugin, you add it to CRM, and you tie it or relate it to the trigger of the creation of the account. So the event that you want this plugin to be triggered on is the creation of the account. The handler, the event handler, I'm sure you're all familiar with those terms. They are programming terms. The event handler is actually the code in the plugin. So when you create an account, that's the event, it will be handled by a code, that's the plugin, which updates the account record with a certain number. So that's called a plugin. A workflow is the same, but it's more graphical. Excuse me. Our workflows are more graphical, and they are business oriented, more business oriented in the whole thing. It doesn't have any code, nothing. You just specify certain steps. I'm not sure you worked with it or not. You add, for example, a step to create a record when something happens, and then send an email and so on. And also, I showed you yesterday how importing works. So all of those are processed or handled by a service, a Windows service. Actually, it's an executable file called CRM async. I think async service or something like that. .exe, and that's I'll show you everything, all those services. It's a Windows service that handles it asynchronously. That means that if the account is created, the account will be created and everything will be in the database, and then it will add the auto number that I talked about later, whenever the server is free. So it's not in real time. There is another option to make the plugin run in real time, but if you do that, it will run on the web application service. Sorry, it will run on this service, the web application server, if it's in real time. Okay, the difference is that one, the one that runs in the application server, that's called synchronous. When the account is created, it will generate the number. If it's asynchronous, right away, it doesn't delay. Asynchronous delays the operation, but it tells the user that you can work with a record, but there are other things that I will do later, something like that. Okay. There is an email integration service which sends and receives emails. There are different ways of handling emails. I'll show you. And then there is a sandbox processing service, which is the same as the asynchronous processing service. The only difference is that sandbox provides more security. It prevents the developer from writing code that can access the database directly. He can't access the file system, the event logger, the network itself, the internal network. He can't do any of this. So it's more secure, but the same as the asynchronous processing service. Excuse me. Okay. So the last group is the deployment administration. It's like an interface or control panel that you can add and remove organizations or control them, edit them, and so on. There is also a PowerShell module where you can write commands for CRM using something like the command line. Okay, let me show it to you real quick. This is called the PowerShell. Where is it? Okay. This is called PowerShell. It's the same as the command prompt. This is the one you are familiar with, but it has a few more options, or it's more powerful actually. It can be deducted from its name. And there is a VSS writer. It's just to back up and restore CRM using a volume shadow copy. It's something called volume shadow copying. So it's a helpful service for recovery, for backup in general. Then there is the recommended clustering that Microsoft usually recommends from the projects I've worked with, is to have a cluster of front-end service, load balanced, if you will. For example, 2 front-end servers with a node that load balances between them. So if any requests is received, it distributes. For example, there are 2 requests. One goes to server 1 and one goes to front-end server 2. Then the back-end deployment administration should be on one server, Active Directory on one other, SQL on another. SQL can be clustered on multiple servers, but it should be separate from CRM completely, okay, but on the same domain. And then there is Exchange. Exchange is used for sending and receiving emails. It's like Hotmail. It's the same as the server of Hotmail, something similar. Okay, there are a few services. I know there is a lot of theoretical parts in this session, so please bear with me. Okay, there are a few services that are installed in the server. Those are Windows services. Actually, they are not web services. They are Windows services. There is a synchronous service. We have talked about it. There is the maintenance service, the maintenance asynchronous service, which regenerates encryption keys used for communication with the user who logs in. And there is the database deletion if you delete a record, it's not deleted right away from the database. It might take some time to be deleted. That's this service is responsible for that. And then there's the unzip service, which is used to import files. For example, if you remember, yesterday we exported the translation. It was in a zip file. When you import it again, the unzip service actually is able to read this file. There is a sandbox service, we just talked about it, and if you don't remember, it's this service. It's the same as the asynchronous, but it provides more security. And there is the monitoring service, which just monitors CRM and reports some facts about it, or the health actually of CRM in the event viewer. So this is a very important service. And now we have okay, service accounts. For each Windows service, you should have a separate account for it. So, for example, a separate login account on the Active Directory just for this service. I'll show you how you can configure this. The accounts that are recommended are the application service, which is used by the IIS and unzip service, the deployment service, which is used by the IIS, but for a different application pool. And then there is a sandbox, VSS, and so on. Okay. If you want to change any of those accounts, you have to perform a repair installation. And this is very important. Do not change the accounts from the service control panel of Windows. You have to repair the CRM installation. Because actually you might when CRM is installing, it might add those this account information in different places in the database, and not that in addition to the ones in the Windows. So you have to so you don't know what CRM where CRM adds those changes, so you have to perform a repair. Then there is the license. There are different types of licenses. Actually, there are two main ones: the ones for the server and the ones for the client. There are two types of server licenses. There is a server license, the full server license, and then the workgroup license. You can change the license at any time by changing the product key. I'll show you how. And then there is the workgroup license is just limited, as you can see, just 5 users maximum, and single organization and single server. Meaning single server means that you can't install the roles on different servers, just one server. And then there is a client access license. Okay, the client access license is called the CAL for short, and it's per name. Okay, that's named per named user, not names. It's per named user, which means that let's say I'm Ahmed, and I have a colleague called Mohammed. I have to access CRM. I have to have my own license, and he has to have his own license. But it's not necessary that Ahmed himself accesses CRM. It doesn't matter. It's just that the license is holding his name. So another user can can use his license, but he can't access CRM at the same time as another person. Let's say Ahmed, and Hussam. Ahmed, there are only two licenses. Then, if Ahmed and Hussam is working, Ahmed can't work. If Ahmed and Mohammed is working, Hussam can't work on CRM. That's all. So whatever the name is on the license, it doesn't matter. Let's talk about access types. Actually, this situation I talked about, this use case, where Ahmed, Mohammed, and Hussam are using just two licenses. This is called device license. Access type. Its access type is per device. But this is fine for a single workstation. But if the user, if Ahmed, for example, is accessing CRM from a station and then wants to access CRM from his home or from his mobile device and so on, he has to have a license that is a user of the user type, and Hussam can't use his license in this case. So it's either per device, where anyone can use it, or per user, where this user only can use it. And in both cases, the license has to have a name, whoever it is. There are different types of licenses as well, different levels, if you will. There is essential, basic, and professional. The essential just gives you access to this list, custom entities, SDK. SDK means that you can access it from the back end using code. And there is the activities and activity feeds, basic accounts, contacts, cases, and so on. And the professional gives you access to everything. One thing to note that's very important: CAL licenses are not enforced. I know you'll ask me about this, and it doesn't make any sense. What this means is that if you don't have a license, you can use CRM. Okay, so this is as simple as possible. If you don't have a license, you can use CRM, but that's not a good thing. So it's up to you. Microsoft doesn't enforce that. But if you don't have a license, you can't install CRM. That's the difference. You can use it without a license, but you can't use it. You can't install it without a license. So, but of course, if you use it without a license, that's a problem. But that's between you and Microsoft. There are different access modes. There is the administrative, where you configure CRM like we did yesterday. That doesn't require a license. There is the read, which is basic access only, which you can read only, of course. And there is a read write. Okay, read only. Well, some users might need it for example, the knowledge base. For example, they want access to only the knowledge base, so you give them a read access mode. Okay, Microsoft requires CRM requires SQL to be installed. Those are just recommendations, by the way. So it's not necessarily applied. If you don't have RAID 5 or you don't have a quad processor or whatever, you can still install CRM, but it won't be at optimal performance. So what is recommended is that SQL is installed on a RAID 5 or RAID 10. Just I'll give you an idea of what is RAID. RAID is a hard drive configuration. So, for example, if you have one hard drive, that's not in a RAID setup. If you have two hard drives, you can connect them in parallel, so that you have better performance. For example, if it's in RAID mode 0, if the two hard drives are configured in RAID mode 1, that's called redundancy mode, where the performance is the same as one hard drive, but it's used for redundancy. If one hard drive fails, the other can be still used. In RAID 0, the performance mode, if one hard drive fails, you lose all data. In RAID mode 1, you don't lose the data. You still have one hard drive. Of course, you can configure RAID 0 and RAID 1 for 2 drives, 3, 4, 5, whatever you want. It's up to you. The more you add, the more you get. So if you add more for RAID 1, you have more redundancy. RAID 0, you have more performance. RAID 10 is actually a combination. You combine the performance of RAID 1 with the redundancy, the performance of RAID 0 with the redundancy of RAID 1. The minimum number of hard drives to be used is 4 hard drives. Then you have RAID 5, which is just 2 hard drives in RAID 0 and 1 hard drive in RAID 1. This one hard drive is used for calculating something called a parity. So that if any data is lost, it can be recalculated using a certain sequence of string. Anyway, that's not our topic, but just know that it's recommended. And then there is CRM. The CRM itself should be installed on a server with quad 2 gigahertz processor, 8 gigabyte RAM, but I recommend personally 16, and for a small organization. And there is 40 gigabyte space. And this is also not not really, it's not realistic. If you have an organization that keeps adding data, it might reach to 1 tera. So this is just the minimum space you need for installation. And then there is software. The software requirements are Windows 2012, IIS. It can you don't have to install it, but it will be installed during setup. You can use SharePoint, but it's optional, and Exchange is optional. SQL, the minimum version is 2012 Service Pack 1. You have to install the reporting services, and it must be on the same domain as CRM, meaning that if you access the server using, for example, linkdev /Ahmed, then the SQL server has to be installed using the same user, a different user, but within the same domain, linkdev as well. So that's all. Of course, you enable Windows authentication and pipeline for example, TCP or there's another one I don't remember, and it has to be on the same LAN. That's for performance. That's all. So that because the communication between CRM and SQL is there is a lot of communication, so it has to be on the same LAN. Okay, the Active Directory must be pre-installed. The CRM setup doesn't install it, and ADFS is optional. Active Directory Federation Services, we talked about it yesterday. It's used for ADFS actually is required. Sorry, IFD is required if you're going to access CRM from a mobile device. Okay, so and the IFD is installed, is configured above ADFS. So ADFS is just a module that is installed inside Active Directory itself. Okay, the rest is pretty self-explanatory, and okay, you can use this for referencing. There are a few components that are installed with the setup. There is IIS, which is used to host the website of CRM. If you want to configure the website to be accessed using SSL, which is more secure, HTTPS that is, then you have to actually create the website before you install CRM. Otherwise, the setup will create the website for you. If you want to change the binding, you have to change something called the web address. I'll show you what that is. And then there is the application pools. IIS has something called application pool for a group of websites. It's like a different executable, a different instance of the web service, of the process that hosts the website. So, for example, if you have two websites, let's say Google and Facebook, and you don't want them to interfere with each other, you create a different application pools and then host the website in those two application pools. You just separate them so that in the server itself, each one is running inside a different exe. Okay. Of course, SQL it has to be installed. The .NET Framework 4, PowerShell, and so on. Those are just prerequisites. There is something called security groups. When you are installing CRM, you have to define certain security groups. It's created for you. It's created for you if you are a domain administrator. Okay. If you're not a domain administrator, then you have to define the security groups previously. It has to be predefined or pre-created in the Active Directory, and then you specify the names in the configuration file of the setup, and then start the setup. So it's a longer process if you're not a domain admin. Some clients request that CRM I'm sorry, they refuse to give you access to the domain admin, so you are forced to use this method, the XML configuration file. There are different groups, the reporting group, the user group, and so on. Each one has a certain role. Actually, in the exam, they might ask you what is the use for each one. So the reporting group, of course, is used for reporting. The user group is for administration functions. For example, creating and controlling the users, if you will. The SQL access is used for accessing SQL and so on. So each group controls what are the privileges that relate to it. Okay. There are some additional components that are installed after you finish installing CRM. One of them is actually mandatory. It's not optional. The reporting extensions, which it has another name, SRS Data Connector. It allows CRM to communicate with the SQL reporting services to generate reports. It helps CRM to translate reports that are written in something called Fetch XML. You can have two types of reports. One is written in SQL. That's the normal reports that everyone is used to. And there are another type of reports, which is the Fetch XML reports. It's written, the query itself is similar to SQL, but is written in XML. That's all. That's the only difference. It performs the same functions, of course a bit limited, it doesn't have all the functions, but it performs the same idea, it has the same idea, but written in XML. Of course SQL Server doesn't understand XML, so something has to translate it. That's the use of the reporting extension. It should be installed on the same server as the reporting service. As we have said, we can have different servers. Each server has a role. One of them is the SQL. You can separate the reporting services from the SQL and install it on a different server. But the reporting extensions has to be installed on that server, the reporting server. Okay. As I've said, it's required because it's used for creating and importing organizations. I'm not sure why. It doesn't have any function really. Maybe because they publish reports or something. I'm not sure. It's something internal. There is also the report authoring extensions. Okay, the report authoring extensions is an extension that's installed inside Visual Studio. It helps you to create reports using Fetch XML. The one that's installed that's already installed in Visual Studio, or the default one, is the one that's used for creating SQL reports. So to create Fetch XML, you have to install something called authoring extensions. Language which allows for communication with CRM actually. It allows you to communicate with CRM to see the result of the report when you are developing. Okay, but it's not required to run the report later inside CRM. You can install different languages, but the base language can be changed. So if you install CRM in the English language, the base language will always be English, and then you can add different languages to it, like Arabic and so on. I'll show you how we do this. Okay, now we're going to install CRM from the start till the end. So let's see. Okay. Of course, as we have said, let me make sure that I'm recording this session just to be sure. Okay, it's recording. The first thing we do is install Windows. So I have installed Windows just to save time. It's a straightforward process that doesn't involve any skill. And then you need to add a few roles. So when Windows is first installed, you'll see this screen appear. It's called the Server Manager. You need to add a few roles, as we have discussed before. You just click on Add Role and then Next. Hussam, it's actually, let me show you. It's actually this machine. I have put a limitation for the memory between 4 giga and 10 gigabyte, and the processor I'm using 4 core this laptop is an i7, so it's a 4-core i7, and that's it. The hard drive is actually I don't remember. The hard drive is, I think, is 90 gigabytes. I have assigned a 90 gigabyte hard drive. It's SSD. So it's SSD is equivalent to four hard drives running in RAID 0. Oh, no problem, of course. Okay, let's continue. Then you have, you just press next, and then the thing that has to be installed is, of course, the Active Directory domain services, which controls the users. And although CRM will install IIS, I recommend that you install it by hand. Okay, so you choose those two. You choose the Active Directory domain services and the web service, the IIS. Next. To install SQL Server requires that .NET 3.5 is pre-installed. So you have to choose it. And as I've said, although CRM will install some things, I recommend that you choose them in this screen, better than depending on the setup. So you choose the Identity Foundation, which is not necessary, but sometimes it's used. And then the last one is the Windows search. Okay, so here we chose .NET 3.5, Identity Foundation, and Windows Search Service. Okay, next. And then here, well, I choose just for completion the basic authentication and Windows authentication types, and then next. And you have to specify an alternate source path for the .NET 3.5 installation. So you just go to, you have to insert this is the CD path drive, and then sources, and then SXS, and then copy and paste it here, and then OK. That's the alternate path. Then you install. This will install those components that you see in front of you, and after it has finished, you have to promote something called promote domain, the domain itself. Let's skip. Apply. Okay, as you can see, it's extremely fast. That's why we recommend RAID. And then we do this. Okay, it has finished installing. So what you need to do next is promote the server to a domain controller. Usually in your own company, there is a team for the infrastructure activities. So you don't need to do this yourself, but let's say you want to do it at your own home, for example, to create a virtual machine and so on. That's why I'm showing you the steps. Okay, those are the very basic steps. They don't involve security, they don't involve performance optimizations, nothing. So those are the most basic. Okay, promote the server to a domain controller. Let's say linkdev.com. You add a new forest, by the way. You add a new forest and specify a domain. This part is a bit slow because it has to check the network. Okay, we enter any password you'd like for the domain. Okay, and then next, and then the NetBIOS domain name. That's the domain name that will be used in the login. So when you're logging in, let's let me show you. Okay, it's okay. I'll show you later. Okay, it's link dev. That one is link dev. Okay, and just the rest is really easy. Next, and then install. The domain name actually appears here when you first log in. Okay, there it is. See, it's link dev / administrator. If you want another user, you'll just write link dev / this the username, test user, for example, or whatever. Okay, link, okay, and then we want to install SQL. So that's I have inserted the CD. You just run it. There is no auto run. Okay. Okay, installation, SQL. Okay, accept, next. Oh no, sorry, next. Just go through it. Here, this is the part that's important. You have to choose the database engine services, the full text search, okay, 1 second, Chiki, and I'll tell you. 1 second, please. The database engine services, the full text, the reporting services, and just to manage the database, you should choose management tools. Those are the minimum required components. Let me tell you again. Database, full text search, reporting services, and the management tools basic. Okay, next. Next. As you can see, it's pretty easy. All you do is press next. So, but of course, if you're going to deploy it at the client side and the client has specific requirements, it might be more involved than this. Okay, you just add the current user in this screen, next, and that's it. Install. Okay. The next step. You asked me a question. We have talked about Chiki. We have talked about the license and just the prerequisites and requirements to install CRM. That's all. And now I'm showing you how to install CRM from scratch by installing SQL, adding a domain, the prerequisites, and so on. Okay, that's all. Okay, let's go to the next step. We have installed SQL. The next step is to install CRM's prerequisites. Okay. Sorry. Okay. After you insert CRM's CD, you just start it, and then choose you want to install Microsoft Dynamics CRM Server. and then don't get updates. If you wanted to automatically update that, you can do that, but I don't recommend this. Okay, the product key. This screen will install the prerequisites. This takes some time depending on your connection, but you have to be patient. There is no progress, there is nothing, so just be patient until it's done. I have skipped this, so let's jump this point. Okay. All right, so it has been installed. .NET has been installed, but actually it will show you a yellow icon, and it will tell you that reboot is required, and doesn't give you anything to do after that. So any indication of what to do next. So all you have to do is cancel the setup and restart. Just restart. Okay. Let's skip this, and then after restarting, you resume the installation. Okay. All right. Is my voice clear, guys? Is there any problem with the audio? Are there any problems? It's clear? Okay, thank you. All right, let's continue. Okay, so the next step is to actually start the setup again. You just start it as you have previously done, and there are a few components that are remaining, but they are actually they have been downloaded already. So you just have to tell it to install. It will install it pretty quickly, and then continue. Relatively quickly. Okay. We'll skip it. After you have installed CRM, you start to install the reporting components. As you can see here, the reporting extensions. So that's what we're going to install now. Okay, connect. Start. Okay. All right. I just want to confirm that CRM is installed. Ah, yes. All right. The next part is to install the reporting extensions. Not the report authoring extensions, the reporting extensions. Choose that. Next. Okay. It's just a straightforward process. You choose. Okay. Okay, you choose the SQL Server. This is the server I'm inside right now. Then you choose the reporting services instance. You don't want updates. Next. It's just it will perform. This error. Okay, to fix this error, you have to go. You'll always get this error. So you have to not always. It depends on which account you use to install SQL. So you go to reporting here. choose the reporting services configuration manager, connect, then go to service account, change the account to local system or whatever local account you want to use, and then accept. Just save the key or create a new key, add the password, and okay. You have to cancel the setup and start it again. Alright, it has finished. You just stop the service, start it again. Okay, you start the setup. Okay. Next. Okay, and install. After you finish installing the reporting extensions, it's time for the, yes, there is another thing. 1 second. Reporting and, no, actually that's it. I think that's it. Okay. Now the Arabic. You want to install the Arabic language. Okay, to get a language pack, you go to, you just search for Dynamics CRM Arabic pack, for example, for CRM 2016. The downloaded file will be named using the code of the country. So, for example, let's look here. I have it here. It will be named CRM 2016 MUI, meaning multiple user interface. SAU, this means Saudi Arabia, whatever the U means, and the encoding or the architecture, AMD 64. You want to match the architecture of the server you have installed. So if you have installed, of course, it should be 64 always in, right? You just start setup. Okay. It's reading from a flash drive, so it's a bit slow. So please bear with me. All right. Now let's extract it. Okay, so let's say it has been extracted. All right. So let's cancel it and jump. Okay, there is the folder. You just start this file and just go through the setup. It doesn't ask for anything out of the ordinary or anything special. After you have installed it, the next step is to install the router. We'll talk about the different types of email processing. One of them is called an email router, which is a separate program that is installed on the server. It checks periodically on the email server whether it has new mail, and checks and sends it and synchronizes it with CRM, and the other way around. It checks CRM every minute and it checks if something needs to be sent, and it sends it. That's all. So let's see here. Oh, sorry. Server. Okay, you have to insert the CD. Oh, it's inserted already. So you choose the router, and there is nothing special either in the router. All you need to do is just accept, install those two components. Next, and there are two components that are installed with the email router. It's the email router service itself, which actually checks periodically, and there is the rule deployment wizard. We'll talk about something called forwarding mailbox. Just know for now that you have to add a rule in your own inbox so that it forwards all the emails you get to a certain mailbox called a forwarding mailbox. Everyone who needs to send something to CRM adds this forwarding rule. So if you're in your company and you access CRM and you want to see your emails in CRM, as an administrator can create a central mailbox called forwarding mailbox, and you add a rule inside your exchange email so that it forwards the emails to this forward mailbox. The rule deployment wizard simplified this. As an administrator, I don't want to add this rule to every user by hand, so this wizard adds it to a lot of users easily. Okay, we won't demo this today, so just know that it is available. And next, that's it, and install. Okay, that's the email router. It's very easy. Now, the next step is to CRM 2016 has an update. It's called update 1. It's a very important update. Actually, I have noticed that they repaired a lot of issues and actually added a pretty cool features. Okay, thank you. Adding pretty cool features for update 1. So my recommendation is that if you're going to deploy CRM 2016, install update 1 right away. Consider it a requirement. All right, so apply. Okay, let's see. Okay. What you need to do is go to Google, for example, search for Dynamics CRM 2016 Update 1. Then install it in the language in the language you desire, the base language. That actually the language that you install the original CRM in. So if you installed CRM in English, download the update in English and so on. And then you'll find the file here. 1 second. You'll find this file. Update 1. A few files actually. The server file, which will update the server itself, the core of CRM, and then there is one for the email router and one for the SRS connector. If you remember the reporting extensions, you have to install the update for every component that you have installed previously. You have to update all components on all servers as well. So if you have a component, if you installed a role, for example, the front-end role, the web server, you have to install on one server, and then the back-end asynchronous service on another. So you have to install the server update on the front-end and on the back-end. The SRS update or the reporting extensions has to be installed. Its update has to be installed on the reporting extensions, the reporting service server. Okay. If you remember, we had a requirement that the reporting extensions must be installed on the same server as the reporting services server. So the update has to be installed on that server as well. So the update is straightforward. After we start it, we just press next, 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 and it's done. Okay, nothing special. It just takes a bit of time because it updates the database as well. So let's skip this. Okay, as you can see in this screen, all the prerequisites have been installed. So the next step, we press next, and then next again, and then there is the list of okay, let's make it full screen. There is a list of, okay, sorry, server roles. So if you want everything to be installed on the same server, all you need to do is choose full server, and as you can see, the front end, back end, the groups are installed on one server. If you don't want that, you just remove whatever you want to move to another server. Let's say the front end, for example, and the deployment, and you only want the back end on this server. So just choose back end. During the installation process, the deployment manager or the central, the control, the database itself contains everything, all the information about where is the front end, where every role is. So whenever you install a role on a different server, you point it to the database, and the database stores its location, the location of this role. So you don't need to enter any path or any addresses or anything. It's automatically managed. All you have to do is just install the component you want. So let's move on from this. Then here you need to specify the SQL Server address, the machine that hosts the SQL Server. So in our case, it's localhost. So you just write localhost and press next. All right. Next, you need to choose an organization unit where everything is going to be stored, all things related to the domain. So just choose domain controllers. Okay. Next, and then you have this is a place. This is the screen where you define. If you remember, I said that I mentioned that every service installed inside Windows that is related to CRM needs a separate account. So you create the account in the domain, let's say linkdev/Ahmed or admin, and you want this account to be used for application service only. So let's say the account is called app service, app SVC. So in this space, under the account name, you write linkdev / as you can see, there is an example for the network service. linkdev / app service, and enter the password right next to it. But for demo purposes or for training purposes, or if you want something quick, you don't want to create accounts yourself, you can use the network service account. You'll see me setting it, and when you set it, the password, you don't need a password. It's an integrated account. Okay, then you press next. Okay, the next part is to specify the website that is going to host CRM, the front end. The default website, by default, the CRM uses the website hosted on port 80. If you want to change the port to use a website on port 45, for example, 555, you have to actually go to IIS, create it yourself on that port, and then choose create new website here and specify the port. This does not create the website for you. Please remember that. You have to create it yourself. It's true, it says create new website, but it doesn't create the website itself, the application. So you have to create it on IIS, and then come here and choose create new website and specify the port. Another thing, if you are going to use HTTPS, you have to as well create the website first with a certificate and everything, and then come here to choose create new website and choose a port. If I remember correctly, HTTPS is hosted by default on port 443. Okay, and then the email router server name where you install the email router. That's not really important. Okay. And then you choose this is where you're going to configure the organization the default organization settings. So you choose a name, you choose a currency, and then a SQL collocation. Just leave it as it is. You don't need to change this. But please remember that that once you choose the currency here, you can't change it for this organization. This is the default organization. You can create other organizations. I'll show you how, but this is the default. Once you choose a currency, you can't change it. But you can, if you remember from yesterday, you can specify or define currencies in relation to other currencies using the exchange rate. But whenever you specify a value for a currency, let's say the price, in a record, for example, a sales order record, and there is a total amount in the sales order. If you specify that amount, you will have, as we have said, 3 fields. One field for the value of the currency, one field, sorry, for the currency you're going to use for that specific sales order. Another value for the sales order total in the currency you have chosen, and then a third one that you can't control, that you can't change, which is the value of this currency in the base currency which you chose here. So if you chose Egyptian pound, for that, if you chose here US dollar, and then in that record you chose Egyptian pound, then the value in the currency and the base currency will be different. There will be an exchange rate. I showed you this yesterday. You can revise it in the video. Okay, next. Okay, the report. This is very important. The reporting server URL. You have to copy this URL and make sure it works. If it doesn't work, you have to go to the reporting server configuration. The one, if you remember, I changed the account to local system. In this control panel, you can go to the web address and make sure and copy paste the reporting server URL. Okay, and then next. Next, don't update. Next. Yeah. And then here in this screen, CRM checks for any problems and reports it. If you see a warning, you just click it and then click on details button, and it will describe you the problem. There is also a log file that is saved for the installation. I'll show you where. I'm not sure I showed it here. Let's see. Okay, next. Oh no, I didn't show it. Okay, then CRM starts to install. This takes a bit of time. The log file is saved here. Let me show you. The log file is saved. This is very important. The log file can tell you of critical problems that that the installation won't be successful without fixing. So you go to okay. Let me show you. Hidden show expand. Okay. Then let's see here. You go to C users, the user that you're logged in with. I'll try to remember the app data, local, Microsoft. No, I think it's roaming. Ah, yes, it's roaming. So you go to users, the user that you're logged in with, app data, roaming, Microsoft, MS CRM logs. Now you'll see there are a lot of logs. One of them is for the setup. So it's either this or this. So just browse it. I think it's the first one, CRM server setup. It will tell you if there are any problems. Of course, it's a bit verbose. So you just need to check the time stamp of where you think the problem happened. Actually, the screen that I showed you just now here, this screen actually logs in that file. So if you see a red X icon here, you can go to that file, to the log file, and check for errors. You just read from the top, from the bottom up. The bottom is the latest entry, and then go up until you find the problem. Right? If you just started the setup, it should be a small log file. To reset it, you just delete it. That's all. All right. Let's continue here. Okay. Then you start the setup. Then the data connector. Okay, I showed you all this. To get the URL for the reporting service, you just click on web service URL in this screen. I showed you this screen before. So you just click web service URL and copy paste. All right. And that's it. Okay, let's continue with our to control the organizations, add, remove, create, delete, disable, and update. In the past, updating an organization was done from inside CRM. Now it's done in the deployment manager. I'll show you how as well. By default, when you install an update, the default organization is updated by default. Okay, this was the past behavior. Now, I think all enabled organizations are updated. I'm not sure of the current behavior, really, but check for it when you are installing an update. Servers control, yes, you can enable and disable service, but it doesn't disable SQL service. So if you disable a server, let's say you have a front-end, back-end, and deployment manager, if you disable the backend, it will disable the services inside this backend. All right, but if you disable the SQL server, it won't disable SQL actually. So this is something to note. And there is something called web addresses. Okay, let me show you the deployment manager. When it opens, you have a few things to note. One is that change product key. You can change the product key to, for example, if you had a workstation, I think it's called worker group license, you can upgrade to a full license if you enter the product key here. You can configure something called claim based and IFD. I'll talk about it in a bit. Then you can create a new organization, import an already existing organization. I'll show you, there is a trick to it, and then you can disable and enable an organization, browse it, check the properties. But something to note, if you want to edit it, you have to disable it first, okay, and then edit. You can change its display name, the SQL servers that it points to, and the reporting services URL. You can change all those three. And then you have, of course, you have the servers. You can't add a server here. You just, if you want to add a new server, you go to this server, install it, and point it to the SQL server. Okay. As we have said, you can disable the server, which disables the services on it except the SQL. You can, and the reporting service. You can't disable those. Then there is something called the deployment admin. The deployment admin can actually access this screen. By default, the current user, when you install CRM, will be added. If you want to add a new deployment administrator, you add it here, and it will be, I am not sure. I think it will be added automatically to CRM. I'm not sure about that, but let's check for it. And then you have, you can access the properties here for the root properties here. Okay, there's something called web address. It is recommended that you change all of the 4 addresses here to match how you access each one of them. Let's take an example. Let's say this server is on IP is on IP 105. So let's try to access it. I think I disabled the organization. 1 second. Oh yes, I had it disabled. So let's enable it, and it's 105. Okay. To log in, I have to enter the domain / the user, and then the password. It's the first time that I'm accessing it, so it takes a bit of time. Okay, so now it's working. So what we need to do is take this address, copy, and add it here next to the port. You just add it, change it, depending on where this service has been installed. Usually all of those services are accessed on the same address, and then you just say okay, and that's it. This is very important. It might cause problems with with some solutions that are installed or actually accessing CRM from a programmatical interface. So just make sure that you update this address and keep it up to date. All right. What we did you say? Next. Okay. Let's import a new. Add a new organization. New. Just specify the name, the currency. Let's say this one. And the base language. Arabic is installed, so we can choose it. Okay, but let's stick to English. Next, the SQL server, the reporting service. It will check for a few things, and then it will tell you that everything is okay. And next, it will add it. All right, it takes a bit of time as well. So I just want to check for something. Oh, okay. I don't have the update installed, so let's. IFD is simply is based on something called claims-based authentication. It's you have to enable SSL for CRM. That's the first thing. Access it using HTTPS, and claims-based authentication. It's a bit of a complex process, but just I'll tell you. I'll just give you an idea. Okay, let's continue. So, as we have said, there is something called claims-based authentication. It's similar to how Google authentication works. So, let's say you're accessing a website, any website, LinkedIn, for example, any website, and you want to access this website using your credentials at Google. So what you do is when you access the website, you click on a Google icon that the website provides. It will redirect you to Google, where you accept a certain screen with a button that says accept. You accept, and then whenever you access that website, it will authenticate with Google and let you in. That's called claims-based authentication, or actually it has another name called single sign-on. This is the official name for it. But the implementation that Microsoft uses is called claims-based. Let's not get into the details. The difference, I'll just explain the difference with and without it. Without it, the usual sequence is that you request access to CRM. It's the 4.1, which is a redirect, I think redirect. I think so, yes. Request Kerberos ticket from AD. It's just like an OK. It tells you, okay, this guy can, this person can log in, and then you request access to CRM where the access is granted. And then there's if ADFS is installed and you're going to use claims-based, it redirects you to a page when you try to access CRM, another page where you log in. It's similar to CRM Online, how you log in CRM Online, which is actually has IFD implemented. Then you enter the credentials. ADFS authenticates with Active Directory on your behalf, and then responds with a token, which is used to, as you have said, claims-based. If you are using claims-based authentication, it's more secure because there is another layer, and you can use it to implement single sign-on, similar to how Google works, as you have said. Okay, so. It has a lot of requirements. Want to import, you have to actually copy the database. Let me show you how. If we go to SQL management, so let's say you're at the customer wants to move his organization from one server to the other. Okay, what you do is go to the SQL Management Studio, choose the organization that you want to export. The database name is in the same name as the organization _ MSCRM. You right click on it and then tasks, I think, and then yes, tasks and then backup. Okay, you right click the database, tasks, backup. You pack up the database. Okay, you press OK. So let's pack it up quick. Overwrite all. Okay. Okay, it's packed up. And then if you want to restore it, you right click on the database node, restore database, and then let's restore it in a different name. This won't take time. Okay, you choose device because you're going to restore it from a file, and choose the file. It should be in the extension of .pack. Choose the file. Okay, this is the name of the database in the file. You can change its name. So let's say it's linkdev2 or restored db.org. Okay, this is a new name. You make sure in the files that the name, the restore as will be as you want, different file, and that's it. Then you OK. It will restore the database in a new name. Okay. When you go to the deployment manager, organizations, and choose import, it will detect automatically whatever organizations are not already added. You choose the SQL server you want to read from and the organization database you want to restore. Next, it will prompt for a new name. Let's say new org. Okay. Next. In this step, you have a few options. Of course, in an organization, you have users. So when you move an organization from an environment to another environment, there might be missing users. So here in this screen, it gives you the option to map them. Whether, for example, they could be in different names. So let's say if you choose automatic mapping, it will match the usernames. If it can't find them, it will prompt you and tells you that there is a problem. You can ignore it, but this user will be disabled in CRM until you add it to your environment in the Active Directory. So you can generate a mapping file and then fill it. It will be an Excel file, or manually map let's say manually map. So you can say, so it will list the users in this organizations. There is a user called first name, last name. His role is admin. You can choose then which user you want this user to map to in your new environment. So you browse, find, it will list all the users in this environment. I have only two, the guest and admin. You choose OK, OK. It mapped it, as you can see. Next, it will check some, it will perform some checks, and then it will, when you press next, it will import it. There is something to note is that there are different options. Keep existing user mappings. This will do nothing. It will just ignore any mismatches. It will ignore everything and just go for it. It might actually give you a prompt to tell you that there is something wrong with the mappings, but that's it. That's it. There is automatic mapping where you choose the Active Directory account name or the full name. The full name is actually, it matches with the full name. For example, first name, the user that's called first name, this one, it actually maps to has a username called the administrator. So it's different than his name. This option, the first option, matches with the username, which is called administrator in our case. This one maps with the first name, okay? Or you can use a file to map. But to use this file, you have to actually generate it first. You generate it, browse, and then generate it, and then start again this import process, and then you tell it to use the existing mapping file. And then there is manually. It's the same screen, really. All right? But it's not pre-filled. This is pre-filled, this is not. Okay? That's it. That's the import process. Okay? So okay. There's something very important is that after you import, the encryption key has to be imported as well. If you remember from yesterday, we go to data management, and then there is something called data encryption. When you try to access it, it will give you an error. It should give you an error. Oh yes, there you go. Because you're not using an HTTPS address or access protocol. Okay, so what you need to do is either follow the instructions and convert your CRM installation into an HTTPS based one, or simply disable it through the database, which is not supported. What you want to search for is disable. Disable SSL check DB query, okay, in Dynamics CRM. Okay, you'll find the query in multiple websites. Let's take this one. Okay, scroll down, you'll find it here. Update, there it is. Okay, you copy it. You go to you create a new request, a new query, sorry, on this database. Or actually, no, in this one. Let me check. Okay, msconfig, right, in this one. And it's actually choosing it, so you don't have to specify the database. It has specified it for you here. And just run it, execute. One row affected, so this should work. What you want to do is reset the website, the CRM website. So you just write is reset. Okay, it has reset the website. Go back to here and try to access it again. Should work. Okay. Okay, let's try again. Ah, yes, there it is. So what you want to do is copy this key from the original environment. Okay, of course you have to show it first, copy, and go to the destination environment where you have imported the organization and paste it here and click it change. That's it. All right. This is very important because actually to get email to work, sometimes it doesn't. It gives you an error that that there is a missing key. So you have to copy and paste this key. All right. Next, I've showed you how to import. Next is the upgrade process. From to upgrade, you have to have a minimum version requirement. So for example, if you want to upgrade to 2016, you have to jump, and you are in 2011, CRM 2011, you have to install first update rollup 6, then update to CRM 2013, then update this upgrade, sorry, and then update 2013 to Service Pack 1, and then upgrade to 2015, then 2016. In the intermediate jumps, for example, you don't have a license for 2013 and 15. All you have to do is get a trial key. You can find this on Microsoft's website under the downloads. The download for 2013 for each version has a key on the download page. Of course, as I've mentioned before, it has to be done on all servers on the deployment. Any server that's involved with CRM, you have to run the server upgrade executable. There are different types of upgrades. There is the in place where you run the upgrade, as I have shown you just a bit ago. You run the setup in the server itself, and that will upgrade the server you're running it on. But this has a problem. What if something goes wrong? Your whole organization will, your whole deployment will be stopped. So to avoid this, what you do is that you use the same instance of database, but use different new servers. Even better, and that's the most safest way of doing things, is to use a new instance of database itself. So what you do is backup the database, restore it in a different instance of SQL, and then install CRM on completely new servers, and then migrate the users to them, or actually move the users, the actual users, they can start working on the new environment. So this is the safest way of doing it, the new instance way type, but of course it requires new servers and so on. So the easiest one and fastest one is in place, but the safest one is the new instance. Okay. The database structure has changed from CRM 2011. If you have noticed here, the tables are called. You'll notice that the tables are called for account. For example, it's called account base. In CRM 2011, there was an additional database table in the database for each entity. For account base, it was called account extension base. This is because CRM separated the custom fields and the custom relationships and so on were separated in a different table. In newer versions from 2013 and until now, they are all in the same table. So it's better. It was unnecessary in the past. There is the Outlook. If you want to update the Outlook, you just upgrade it. It has to be in an online mode. Using an old version works, but only on online mode, no offline support. Reporting extension must uninstall and install, and things like that. It's pretty simple. The PowerShell, as I've showed you, it gives you more power over CRM. You have. Okay, let me show you. Let's copy this. PowerShell. There it is. you run it as admin, and paste, add snap-in, Microsoft CRM PowerShell. That's the first step. Then you want all commands, so you run this. Okay, ماشي. Okay, no, this is taking way too long. Okay, let's break this and try again, run it again. Okay, so you have a few commands. For example, disable CRM server. That's one. So you just let's take an example, or get CRM organization in a grid view. So you take this, paste it here. Should work. Oh, okay. Okay, it hanged for some reason. Run as admin. Okay. All right, let's try again. Okay. Ah, yes, there it is. Okay, so now you see it has displayed all the organizations with their information in a grid view. Okay, that's one of the commands. Okay, so it provides you with you can write scripts for it. There are actually some modules on the internet that provide you with even more power to create entities, delete, and so on. It provides a lot of power for you to do things using the command line and scripts and scripting. Okay, this is a very important part, the email processing, and it's a bit it might be a bit long. Email processing is done using 3 methods in CRM. One of them is the email router. We have installed it, if you remember, and there is something called server-side sync, and there is the Outlook itself. You can't mix between email router and server-side sync. I'll show you why. So let's let's compare them. First of all, the email router is a separate program. It's something that's installed on a server, separate from CRM, and it is what it does is that it checks CRM and the email accounts every minute or whatever interval you have set it to. So it checks in your email account. It checks is there new messages. If there are, it downloads them and then adds them to CRM. Also it checks CRM if there are new messages that needs to be sent. It downloads them and then sends them. So it's just a middleman or a proxy, if you will. So it requires, those are just limitations, requirements. One thing to note is that it doesn't synchronize appointments, contacts, or tasks. That is for the Outlook. And then if you use it for a certain organization, whether it's online or on-premise, you can't mix them. You can't add more than one type of organizations. I'll show you this. Then there is a server-side sync. Server-side sync is actually a Windows service that's installed with CRM. It performs nearly the same function as the email router, but it has some limitations. Or actually, the limitations were in the past. Now it doesn't have those limitations as much. But one limitation to note is that first of all, it's great because it requires nearly no configuration with Exchange online, but it must be in the same tenant. Okay, this limitation has actually is not applied anymore, I think, in the latest version. Also, the configuration is all from inside CRM, so it's better than the main router, and you don't need a separate server to install the main router on. If you are CRM online, oh, the voice, okay. Okay. Has there been a problem with the voice for a long time, or is that recent? That's just now. So we were saying that saying here. Okay, the server-side sync doesn't have support for POP3 or SMTP because never mind the reason, but if you want to use POP3 and SMTP, you're limited to Gmail, Yahoo, and Outlook or Live, and if you want to use it, you can other servers, you can use the email router. Okay. The Outlook, it's an extension that's installed in the Outlook program. Okay, it can't be so. As we were saying, Outlook as Outlook is an extension that is installed in the Outlook program. It doesn't support queues. There is no processing unless, of course, Outlook is running. So this is a huge limitation. So you have to run Outlook to be able to send and receive emails through CRM. You have offline access. It's limited to one organization, and of course 10 gigabyte maximum because it's SQL Express. That's it. For offline access, if you don't have a connection, you do whatever actions you want, and when you are offline or you're online again, it synchronizes those actions to CRM. Okay, so next there is email tracking. Email tracking is actually an action that's taken in CRM or that creates something called an email activity. Okay, email activity is a record that contains the body of the email or information, attachments, whom it's sent to, from whom, and so on. So that's tracking. It's converting the action of converting something into an email activity. Okay, there are options. Of course, you can convert all email received into an email activity. You can only convert the ones that are responses to certain emails, which uses something called correlation. I'll explain in a bit. And then there is leads, contacts, and accounts. From leads, contacts, and accounts, and it compares the from field. And then there is the email enabled entities. For all entities, not necessarily lead, contacts, and accounts only. Then there is correlation. Correlation is actually how would you know that this email is in response to an email you have sent before. So the way that CRM note this is that it adds either it uses either smart matching, where it compares the names, for example, or email, the subject, the number of recipients, their addresses, or uses something called a tracking token. It's a string that's added to the end of the subject when it's sending the email. When the user or the customer replies, this token is preserved. The email account only adds the letters RE at the start, so it knows that this originated from CRM, and it's a reply to a certain messages. It searches the messages for this token. Okay. There's something called folder level tracking. It just maps. You create a folder in Exchange, and whatever emails are received in that folder, records are created that matches those emails. Okay. So it tracks a certain folder in your Exchange mailbox. Okay. Limitations. Well, it only works under the inbox. The folder has to be a subfolder of the inbox. Maximum 25 folders, can't override regarding until moved out. Yes, if you update if you update the regarding field in the email activity, it will be switched back again to whatever record it was originally. So you can't modify the regarding lookup until you move the email out so that it's not tracking it anymore. So there's something called the forward mailbox. I know it's a lot of information, but you have to try it by hand. There is no other way, or just memorize it for now for the exam, and then you can try it later when you install deploying CRM. Forward mailbox, it's a central mailbox. I've mentioned this before. You can use the rule deployment tool to forward the emails to this mailbox. Forwarded emails are forwarded as an attachment. It's if you are checking your mailbox using an email router or server-side sync, not forward mailbox. You're not using forward mailbox. You're checking directly your inbox. The router or server-side sync does not delete the messages. If you specify that you want to monitor. Yes, okay. I'll talk about that after Hassan. Links to the mailbox. Sorry, links. Okay. The forward mailbox, if you are monitoring the forward mailbox, any emails that are fetched or retrieved from the forward mailbox are deleted because it's a dedicated mailbox, so it's safe to delete them. Okay. Email processing. Okay, let's take a quick tour over the email processing parts. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that the email configuration is correct. So if you have an email router, you go to email configuration, and then email configuration settings. And then choose email router. This is very important. That's why you can't use server-side sync and email router. You can't use both of them at the same time. You have to choose one or the other. So you choose email router, and the rest is not important. This option is used to require the approval of emails before they are used. So if I'm user called Ahmed and I have Ahmed at linkdev.com and I added it to CRM, so I have to the administrator has to approve my email before I can process emails in CRM. So this removes this limitation. So let's remove it for now. This enables the forward level tracking, and it has to be used with server-side sync. Use correlation. This is a correlation that I was talking about. Either smart matching, which matches certain keywords and matches the number of recipients, was a minimum number of recipients required to match, and so on. So this is smart matching. There is also a tracking token. There is also the tracking token, which is used, as you have said, when you're sending an email, a tracking token is added. Tracking token is added, which is used for knowing where which record the email originated from. For example, if you are in a case and you want to send an email, you can create an email inside this case, and a tracking token will be added when a reply is sent back. The new message will be added to the same case, so that you know that this reply is where it came from. Okay, that's it. Okay, so this is for this screen, and then for email routers, email server profiles are really just for show. They are pointless. I think there is a question about this in the exam, whether email profiles affect email routers. They do not affect email routers. Also, there is a mailboxes. Let's create a profile just for show. You have to create one, but anything, it doesn't matter. Let's say Exchange server. Okay. Change server. All right. Let's call it tests, and that's it. We don't need anything else. Okay. And let's go back. Go to mailboxes. The next step you want to do is to enable and approve the mailboxes. So this is the mailbox for the admin. You insert the mail address, and you choose a dummy exchange server profile. You choose server side or email router. There's only two options here, but not email router. Email router is not included in the accounts synchronization. And save. But please make sure that it is activated. So this means that it is activated, and whether you want to deactivate it or not. You approve. Okay, and you test and enable just in case, but this is used for server-side sync actually, but just in case, test and enable. All right, so this email should be working. Now you close it and go to the server. This is the server. Close everything. Let's close everything. Okay, and you start the router. This is the email router. Okay, the screen is a bit small, but I'll explain everything. You have three tabs. The first tab specifies the configuration for the email server. So you press new. This is the incoming email server. You choose incoming. You specify the server type, and what do you want to use? Use auto discover. Use what do you want to use? Okay. The local account means you're going to use the one that is logged in to the server. So I'm logged in as an administrator, or actually the one that is running the email router. Okay. Then user specified. This will be taken from the user profile, from the mailbox record that the one we chose, we tested and enabled. Okay, and there is other. You can specify a certain account to use to check the mailboxes. It should be an administrator account that has access to all emails. All right. This is one. This specifies the interval, the port that it's going to check on, and so on. So you choose this and OK. Next are the deployment. Of course, you have to specify. You either use auto discover or specify the address. Auto discover will use a service that is installed in Windows. If you don't have this service installed, you have to specify the address yourself. Okay. Then you have the deployments. Deployment specifies the CRM organization that it is going to check. You have to list them here. So as we have said, if you choose CRM Online, all the other organizations has to be CRM Online. If you choose My Company, all of them has to be on-premise. My Company means on-premise. Okay. You specify the address here of the organization. For example, we take this and paste it here. Access credentials, either local account as well as we have specified before, or other specified. You can use, for example, let's say administrator, okay, and link pass, for example, and then incoming. This is just the default profile. You don't have to specify it. Here we'll say local account, localhost, sorry. Okay. And okay. Next, you want to select the users that are going to be that it is going to check for. So this user is enabled, the first user, but it doesn't have a profile, so it won't check. So what you want to do is modify, choose a profile, and then OK. That's it. Now it will check periodically for this email, for any new messages, and adds it to CRM. There's something called forward mailboxes. A forward mailbox, you need to create one, and then whether you want to delete after processing or not, the email address that's going to check, the incoming, and so on. It's used only for incoming emails, by the way. It doesn't make sense to use it for outgoing. So that's the forward mailbox configuration. Okay, you need to add a record, of course, in CRM as well. So that's it. And you publish. You have to publish. Make sure you publish. And that's it. That's for the configuration of email router. For server-side sync, what you want to do is actually create a server profile. This profile will be a bit more detailed, actually. You say you fill it, and then you choose from here. You choose server-side sync, and in the mailbox itself, you also choose server-side sync here, server-side sync or email router. All right, and the profile that you're going to use. As we have said, it's only limited to Gmail and POP3. In POP3, it's only limited to Gmail and Yahoo and Live. Okay, so next, we have only 2 slides left. Finally, there is the maintenance and troubleshooting. For example, those are just recommendations for how to get the most out of CRM. So, of course, using indexes. That's a well-known optimization. My recommendation, or actually I found this recommendation on more than one website, you use indexes on fields that are used inside a join, a where, an order by. So you can profile, there's something called profiling. You can profile for queries that are received by SQL Server. You check the query from CRM. CRM sends queries to SQL Server. You check the query. If you find fields that are stored in the data that are used in a join or an order by or a where, add an index. Then you can extend this by including more fields that are remaining in the select. Let's just take a quick example to show you how it's done. For example, not bad. Okay, sorry. Let's say you have this this query. Select name and address from account where name like for example test. Okay, so an order by age. Order by age. So what you want to do here is that you're going to you should add an index for name and age and not address. So what you want to do is say this create non-clustered, or I don't remember this command, this clause, non-clustered index, and give it a name, whatever the name, and then on this table that's called an account, and then specify name and age, and then you can include the address. This will give you I don't remember whether it is in parentheses or not, but anyway, you can include the address. This way it will create an index for the name and age, but it will also add the address, but it won't affect the write performance that much. Remember that adding, the more columns you add, the more the lower the write performance in the database will be. So you want to add as few as possible, as few columns as possible. The include doesn't matter, so add whatever you want. Okay, this is I read this article lately, and I think it's very helpful. Next, there is something called page compression for rarely used tables only, and there is something called sparse columns that mostly contain null values. Those optimizations are could bring a lot of performance, a huge performance boost, but please remember that indexes can actually slow CRM greatly, so be careful when using it. There's something called system jobs which specify what asynchronous processes are running. Let's take a quick look at it. System jobs. For example, there is a bulk delete. By default, CRM has a recurring job that deletes completed system jobs. So this will run periodically. It has a status. This status can be completed, can be cancelled, can be whatever. And then when you open it, they are all successful. Okay, when you open it, if there is an error, it will appear here. Let me show you. It will appear, okay, somewhere here. It will, okay, and then all workflows and plugins, asynchronous workflows and plugins should appear here as well, and their status. Okay. The last one. Okay. There is, of course, there is bulk delete, where you can create a bulk delete job. I have explained this yesterday, I think. You define the criteria. What do you want? You want bulk delete system jobs that have an error code, contains data, for example, and then specify when the job should start. Is it recurrent or not? Should it run every few days or not? You can actually edit this here. You don't have to stick to the one in the list. And next, and create and submit. It should run when the server has resources. Then there is the event log. All of this is used in troubleshooting. It's in the server itself, something called event viewer. Okay, Windows and application. As you can see, the email router is throwing an error. The source is MS CRM email. So this error can help you troubleshoot the problems. It says that an error occurred while opening mailbox test@test.com. The URI is invalid, is empty. The URI is empty means that there is no, the incoming email is the incoming address of the address of the mailbox is not valid. It couldn't find an email server using the auto discovery service, because the auto discovery service is actually not installed. Okay, so this is an error. MS monitoring is telling you that all monitoring tests that do not require a test organization succeeded for app service, and so on. It just runs periodic checks to tell you. Of course, there is one monitoring test failed. The test title, check report server from Kaza. Okay, from test report. It tells you that the permission granted user network service are inefficient and insufficient for performing this operation. Access denied. So this is a security problem. So you have to go back and revise it. Why did it throw this problem, this error? So it can help you troubleshoot. Troubleshoot CRM problems. Performance counters are just there's something called performance monitor. Performance monitor. You can add new counters for CRM, for example, here. I think so. There you go. There are some, for example, for CRM server, total number of SQL error retries for each service. You can add it and then monitor its performance. Whatever information you want to gain from it, and it will draw you a graph or a table at the bottom here. It's very helpful, and this is installed with CRM, those counters. Then there is a URL here that can give you some more information about CRM. You just add it to the end here, like this, to give you some information about CRM. Actually, this is used for client side. It gives you information client side, not server side. There is another one for server side. I'll search for it and send it to you. You just run it. It will perform some checks and tell you, for example, the latency is very small, which is great. The bandwidth is very high because it's local. All the latencies are very small, so this is great. and there are a few more details here. Okay, this is very helpful. If a client is complaining about performance, you can perform this check quickly on his computer, and if all those numbers are good, then the problem is in your server. Okay, there's something called tracing. Okay, let me show it to you quickly. You download two tools. One tool is called CRM Diag tool. You just search for it by this name and then run it on the server, and then you can enable tracing. When you enable tracing, it will throw some files here, some entries here where it tells you what is going on. One of them is actually, it tells you, it gives you the query that is sent to CRM. So it's very, very detailed. You can choose the level of detail here, whether you want only errors or verbose, and you can choose the categories. You can choose where the trace is sent, the maximum file size. If you want the call stack, if you are into programming, dev errors, and so on. To read this file, you can use another tool that is called CRM Trace Reader. Search for it by that name as well. Then open the folder that we have here. Okay, I can't paste it. Okay, let's go to it. Program files, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and then trace. Okay, it opened the log files in a friendly UI. This is actually a community tool, so it might have some bugs and so on. You can filter. You can. It's very helpful. Okay, this is the other tool. So both tools are very important to use when you're troubleshooting CRM Diag tool and CRM Trace Reader. That's it.